Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Dark Pit Gems of War faction since the Deep Delve expansion that happened as of today. So with this, we ended up getting a new troop being added to the faction. Keep in mind, it is not in the shard drop table, but you can end up getting it from the reward shop for gems. You can either do it for the standard tier 3 and then use 2 blue orbs on it, or buy it up a bunch in order to get it max, or simply just wait about a month and you'll be able to get it with the standard shards pretty easily, as it is only an epic rarity troop. It's a pretty underwhelming one too. But anyways, we're just going to be going over everything with this delve, all the teams, all the everything. So this is a brown-green delve, particularly associated to that of Miss of Scales, which I believe brings Miss of Scales to a 28-star kingdom. If you happen to be going that far, though it's kind of stuck at 26 due to the how deeds work in the current state of the game. Of course, you now have access to be able to spend 2 of your delve sigils here. This is generally not advised doing, just because it's better if you're trying to progress on all the delves to do one, each of them individually, so you get more progress on the delve rather than doing the deep delves. However, it is a new option. Every single one of these deep delves generally have more treasure rooms than a standard delve. They also have one guaranteed gnome treasure room, which always has a guaranteed gnome in it, which is also something you can utilize if you wanted to try it for any of the gnomes. As far as the actual layout, let me go show it in the other thing so we don't have the treasure room in the way, or the super treasure room. So there are 3 guaranteed treasure rooms in this layout now. It is this one all the way over here, this one all the way to the left, which is why I wanted to show it here, as the other one actually had it overwritten due to the other chests, and this one all the way in the corner here. Those 3 will always be a treasure room, and the rest is just standard layout. So a little bit of a weirder one, mostly because you have to kind of go into the corner now if you want to go for there, or if you're trying to go for the treasure rooms last, you basically have to dip to these 2 all the way over here by going boom, boom, and kind of go in like an M shape, a sideways M, I guess a 3? Like an inverse 3 shape, where you kind of go boom, 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 and take out this little inverse 3-like shape. Or sideways M, however you want to look at it. And then you can take the 3 treasure rooms in rarity order, where you take like here to tier 5, to tier 4, to tier 2. They won't always be those tiers, but in this particular situation they are. So that's pretty much going to be the layout. Similarly, if we compare it to the other one here, similarly, we'd want to take the M shape. We'd probably want to take the M shape over here first, then go do it over here. And then we simply go wipe out all the treasure rooms, take out the tier 5, take out the tier 4, and probably save the super treasure room for last. But then again, the super treasure room actually doesn't have that much loot, so we could actually take that almost first with 1.4 times multiplier. But basically, you'd want to do it in multiplier order. The main reason you want to stall on some of these is, you know, they have a really high gold amount. So if you want to get a bit more multiplier for that gold, you can. Though the catch-22 on those is they might have a high gold amount, but, you know, they also have a high multiplier. So it's generally not worth doing, like, all the math on it. But in this, like, particular layout, we basically want to go here, 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 go there, and then go there in order to maximize the amount of gold we would get for every single one of the rooms. That should approximately be the max. But anyways, it's a lot more complicated of a delve layout. So overall, kind of a downgrade compared to an upgrade, even though it has more treasure rooms. It's just more annoying to try to figure out the pathing, whereas the other one was a little bit easier. It wasn't, like, the easiest, obviously, but it was a bit better than what this one is. Let me just put a troop in here real quick. I just want to go show the other layouts real quick, and I actually don't have one saved on these other 2, since we have the other 2 new ones saved, so we'll just simply retreat, cancel out of this, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, you can spend 2 of your little sigil thingies per day in order to do a deep delve, though since we already did that, let's go down to the standard one now. So this is the standard layout. The way that this normally works is you do have rush methods, you go straight to the end. However, you would normally go here, over here, all the way around the circle, and then take the treasure room in most situations, unless the treasure room has like a super high multiplier there. But you would go here, around there, around the corner. Don't forget to take the treasure room before clicking on that room, and then take that room. Because this is always guaranteed treasure room, but this one, unlike the other one, only has 1 guaranteed treasure room, whereas the new delve layout now has 3. Anyways, let's go and start getting into a bunch of teams for this place. So as far as the faction soul is concerned, actually let me go into the other menu. It'll be easy to bring the teams up here. But anyways, as far as options we have, we're going to be showing 5 here. 2 of them are higher rarity, 2 of them are lower rarity, and 1 of them, of course, is the pure faction team, which doesn't really matter what the rarity is because you'll have it regardless. Anyways, for the lower rarity, we, of course, are restricted to brown-green. For this first team that we have here, it is Guards, Avatar, and Sir Quentin Hadley. Good old classic. I've been running a lot lately. It just works really well for it. If you happen to have access to it, Leprechaun to get them all up, some other mana accumulator in first slot. Just really a good way to kill out lower leveled factions. If you need something lower rarity, you can go any weapon here. You can go the Stone Slicer if you have access to it. You can go the Construct Explodey weapon if you have access to it. They were around several months ago when we had Hellcrag. coming into the game, which at this point actually might be almost like a year ago. However, if you don't have access to this, you can use any of the explodey weapons. It's not too big a deal, but if you do have access to some of the better ones, definitely use it. But basically, it's just gargoyle spam. You can double cast kill. It has mana accumulation, so sometimes the extra turns. You also get your mana back. Once you have all three of them at full mana, you can wipe out pretty much every battle at this lower range. And one nice thing about this that the AoE ones somewhat struggle with is if they resummon, you have a really good option to kill them back, as you're going to be getting mana accumulation. You might get an extra turn, you might just immediately be able to cast another gargoyle against them. So a lot better against resummoning compared to the average AoE team. Even though it doesn't one-shot kill the entire enemy team, it's a lot more flexible what you can do with it. Anyways, next we have the higher rarity high team. For the higher range. This one is basically it's a Rope Dart Ubistet team. We're running Marilith as our primary mana accumulator into a double red and using Leprechaun once again just as a good old mana accumulator. We're doing Sun Spear here. You can set a tankier hero class. However, due to the +3 red that we have, it'll be a lot easier to get a lot of red. Leprechaun will clear the board immediately. It'll fill the board with red, and then Marilith Ubistet just keeps going. And in between all the Leprechaun casts and Marilith casts, particularly Marilith, you should be able to get your Rope Dart out as it's not blocked by anything, especially with the +1 yellow, and that will allow you to keep Rope Darting, Ubistet, Rope Dart, Ubistet, and repeat the cycle until you win. Next we have the lower rarity. Lower rarity, we do actually have access to the good Double Truffle. I haven't showed this for a while, but of course, Double Truffle is still really viable. If you don't have Doomed Glade, you could put pretty much anything there. The main team is Forest Troll into Double Truffle. You could even go Triple Truffle if you really want to. Unfortunately, you do not have access to Mirage Queen for the 50% mana start, so you cannot go down that route. But you could put a different Goblin there that uses green or something similar, and you'll be fine. We're just using Doomed Glaive here with Warden. Main reason for Warden is in case they get submerged. You might even want to do this with a different weapon, like maybe like Black Manacle there or something, if you need something super cheap to put there. And the main reason you want Warden is it has both Green Storm and Dispel. It is still the only hero class to this day that has that combination. It's pretty much the only thing it's good for. The reason why this is useful is it needs Green Storm in order to perpetually keep all the greens, because you're doubling green, you're creating a ton of green with auto extra turn. So you need a lot of green, and having Green Storm, of course, can benefit you a lot. But the bigger thing is Dispel. Dispel is actually really important in Underworld if you're running just pure AoE, mostly due to one of the Submerge perks. There's a tier 5 room that when defeated will submerge every enemy after they cast a spell. This is problematic because anytime they have an Empower, start battle with Empower, they are immediately on their first turn, unless you kill them on turn 1, like on your literally your first turn with like a bunch of extra turns somehow, after you have a good starting board. But if you don't have a good starting board, they will immediately Empower into a Submerge. If they happen to have one. And this is very problematic, as your only damage will be, in most of these situations, AoE. This is one of the reasons why Doomed Glaive is pretty good too, because you can actually bypass it with Skulls. But yeah, generally your team would just be full AoE if you're just running Truffles. And this is problematic because you wouldn't be able to hit something with Submerge. But that's why you have Dispel. You end up running Dispel on a hero class, ideally this, so you also have access to Greenstorm, and you can get rid of it. If you don't happen to have this one upgraded to Banishment, you could use absolutely any hero class you have the Banishment. But the main reason for this one is it has Entangle, it has Greenstorm, has a few other utility things that's pretty nice. It even has Hunter's Mark if you're using it down to Doomed Glaive option, so you get even more damage on top of that. So that's pretty much a rundown on that. And as far as Pure Faction, it has not changed. I actually haven't showed the new troop yet, mostly because it is abysmal. So when I first saw this boost ratio, I was like, wait, did they make it ultra broken and accidentally code it so that every 1 gold is 50 damage? No. Every 50 gold is 1 additional damage. Because one thing I thought initially when I saw this number was, oh, they must have messed up. They must have accidentally made it so every single gold is 50 additional damage, meaning he'll one-shot everything in the game. But nope. That means if you steal the maximum amount of gold, which is never going to happen, you'll be lucky if he even steals 50. Let's say he steals 50. He will get 1 additional damage. It's so bad. I'm not sure why. We actually had a different gold boost ratio kingdom or faction back in the day. City of Thieves. And City of Thieves, honestly, all the boost ratios there are pretty nice. They even had to tone some of them down and add like a restriction to them, just so they wouldn't go too crazy. Like they have a cap of like the Skull one can only cap up to like 14, even though theoretically if you had a Cedric on your team, you could cap to like the whole board of 64. So they had to put like some kind of cap on it so it wouldn't go too crazy. But yeah, this one's just so bad. I'm not sure why. They did City of Thieves pretty decently. Like it wasn't an overpowered faction, but you know, it was balanced. But this one, I'm not sure what's going on with this guy, but he's not useful. It's still the same meta. The meta is basically Hex Rat until you win. You can do this in 3 different ways. You can run Sledge Paw, which is basically his tank. You do not want to cast Sledge Paw. He simply exists just to exist, just to tank. He's the tankiest of all of them, so he just sits there and does that. Plague Rat, you can use as a mana accumulator. Not required, but you can. So the 3 variants of this team are this. Hex Rat, so you have Sledge Paw with a bunch of Hex Rats. The other variant is replace out this and then go like that and go Hexrat into double Hexrat. And the final variant is replace everything with Hexrat. just run 4 Hex Rats. So ideally, as long as you go into final battle with 3 Hex Rats, or like 2 Hex Rats and a support, or if you can bring this whole team to final, you're pretty much good to go. It's basically just spam Hex Rat until you win. The main premise of him is he hits all enemies simultaneously, and that's all you need. He'll only do it if you hit first slot, but just target first slot and you'll do it. He deals a bunch of damage to an enemy and all enemies below them. If the enemy is cursed, it'll deal double damage and death mark them. One thing that you can do to curse, unfortunately this guy doesn't have curse on Skull, but he does have curse on his ability. So if you truly want to kill out their first slot, you could do Sledge Paw first. Biggest issue with casting Sledge Paw is he doesn't do that much mana accumulation. Actually, he destroys a 5x5 block, which is very similar to the Circle of the new Mythic that came out today, oddly enough. But the Mythic does it without the corners, but this one does a full block. This kind of mechanic is pretty underwhelming on everything that's on. I think they overestimate how valuable it is. If anything, I almost find a 3-3 Explode to be more useful, as there's a lot more board control you can do with it, whereas a 5x5 block is so massive that very rarely can you actually do any kind of board control shenanigans like into a 4x, into a 5x Cascade, or something similar. It's just a lot harder to do due to it taking up so much more space on the board. And they definitely overestimate how valuable that mechanic is, as it's not that valuable, generally speaking, unless the rest of the ability and rest of the traits are good around it, in which case it would be. But anyways, yeah, it's basically a spam Hex Rat until you win, is the bottom line of this kingdom. Or faction, I mean, and even has a little bit extra damage every time you take an extra turn, which, not a big deal, but, you know, you can kind of chip at them a little bit if you happen to have a few on the board, especially when you're using multiple upon multiple of them on your team. But that is the rundown on the faction. Overall, not much of an addition to it, but if nothing else, more things to upgrade missive skills with, and more content to go grind, as we do have the entire delve going on throughout this weekend, today, tomorrow, and Sunday, so which also includes Easter. But yeah, if you want to go grind it out, it's a little bit better loot now that it has the triple loot room on the other variant here. However, it's a pretty average faction, nothing really special, nothing outstanding. The new troop they added doesn't add anything to it. I believe the weapon itself, which I didn't actually mention, but I believe the weapon's pretty bad too. You can easily get it. If you're going for 1 copy of him, all you have to do is another 200 gems. I believe it's 210 to get to 1 copy, in which case you could double blue orb him up. And if you want to get the weapon, you can. It's pretty underwhelming though. It just deals some damage to the last enemy, then curses and drains all their mana. Generally, anything under this dagger category tends to be pretty bad, with a few exceptions, but most of them that are daggers that only hit 1 enemy tend to be a pretty bad category of options. For example, next week, actually 3 days from now, as of this video going up, we will have the final, gosh, why can I not remember the name of it? The Tower of Doom. The final Tower of Doom for daggers. And if you don't realize that the daggers are in the game, well, that's perfectly fine, because they're that bad. That I'm pretty sure no one has ever used them a single time, the Doom Daggers. Because just every single weapon that is like this just is not worth using. The closest ones that kind of are were like Skeleton Key pre-nerf and stuff like that. But unfortunately, one of the only good daggers ended up getting nerfed. But long story short, anything that only hits last slot and nothing else whatsoever, even if it 100% guarantees last slot, generally is not worth using. It's just not enough coverage. Especially compared to things that can double hit last slot, like Arachnian Weaver and the such, because you're getting twice the value for the price of 1. And, I don't know, it's just really not worth it in pretty much any circumstance to be using any of these kind of weapons, unless we eventually get a good version of them. But so far, every good version of daggers that have existed that have done a similar mechanic have pretty much all been nerfed, oddly enough. But yeah, it's a pretty underwhelming category of weaponry, and this one is no different. But if you want to get it for completion's sake, might want to do so, as this is one of those weapons that only return ever so occasionally on Tuesdays. You'll probably see it only like one Tuesday once or twice a year, so if you want to pick it up for completion's sake, definitely do so, as you have 3 days to do so instead of the standard 1, which is one nice thing about whenever any of the old delves get a deep delve variant, as you do have that extra amount of time to go and get the weapon. That also means it's in Soulforge too, which is something I don't normally mention during these videos, but if you do want to go and get in Soulforge, it is at a discounted price. So what I mean by this is, that's funny, I showed Abro Crystal for the team. Oh no, I didn't, I changed that for the other one. But yeah, if you need Abro Crystal, you can actually just get it for the thing, if you need Explodey weapon for that one other team I was mentioning earlier. But anyways, you might notice a difference in these costs. For any of you that don't know, because I figured I'd re-mention it now, as I don't normally mention it, but if you don't want to go down the gem route, let's say you don't really want to copy it a troop, or you don't want to spend the extra 210 gems because you just don't have it laying around, or any other circumstance, you actually can get the weapon in Soulforge at a half discount when they're like this. So during this deep delve for this 3 days, you can end up getting it for cheaper compared to if you get into the future. So for example, a normal standard legendary weapon here, it's going to cost 300, 600, 600, so forth. But here, as you can see, it is 50% less than, or sorry, 1/3 less It's 50% more. It depends how you look at it. It's 1/3 less than this. It's 50% more than if you're going from there to there. Whatever way you want to look at it. But anyways, it is discounted compared to normal. As you can see, it's 200, 400, 400 instead of 300, 600, 600. And of course, the souls cost less. It's one less celestial. So whenever these weapons come around like this, it is cheaper to get them on their week of release this way. It is generally better just to gem them down through whatever content they're through, which of course this week is the faction event, or this weekend I should say. So it's cheaper to do it this way. Like for 200 gems, we could just get this, a bunch of other loot that will help us, so on and so forth. But if you wanted to, you can end up going down the Soul Forge route if you didn't want to spend like a single gem or anything else. Like for example, let's say you want to get this guy later in a month and use Chaos Shards to go get him instead of use any of your gems. Well, you can do that. You can get the weapon now if you still don't have it, and then just simply get the troop in about a month from now, technically about 6 weeks from now. We don't know the exact date, but I'll try to mention it on the Monday video when he finally does come around. Yeah, you could just get him through shards in several weeks from now, and then not spend any gems. So there's that route if you want to go down it. But anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for now. That's the rundown on Dark Pits. All 5 of the teams I mentioned are in the description below if you want to go copy paste any of them. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Hope you all have a wonderful Easter, wonderful holidays, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.